Hello. This is going to be the whack order I watched the Hills Have Eyes movies in. And this is one of the stranger orders, probably? I don't know. I mean, like with Wrong Turn, there was like a pattern. Like one of the good ones, two of the bad ones, one of the good ones. And then with Texas, it seemed that I went the two, the two best since the 80s, and then the two best that were the first two, and then the two '90s ones, and then the two '10s ones. But with this, it doesn't seem to follow that pattern that well. I guess if you moved one movie around, it would maybe, but I don't know. Um, yeah, my first Hills Have Eyes movie was the remake. I was born in 2000, movies from 2006. And in order to do this video and a few others I have planned on the franchise, uh, I did just rewatch them all in order of release, and I thought that the remake is one of the best horror remakes, especially of the Zeros. It might be my favorite horror remake that follows the exact plot of the original film, because Texas Chainsaw Massacre, different characters, takes a lot of liberties. Love that remake. The Mummy, '90s one, not the not the shitty one, but it does it really well of viewing a completely different thing. The Thing is completely different from Thing from Another World. House of Wax completely different. So of the remakes that actually follow the exact plot line of the original, this is probably the best. Like they take very few liberties, and I like the ones they do take. I think this movie, like the emotions of the actors, is so spot on and just primal core feelings, and I love that aspect of the franchise. Just the whole idea that it's bringing out the primal fight mode. I say there's the fight and the flight mode, and most people will at some point maybe encounter the flight part of it, but the fight part is probably going to be less often for most people. And I like movies that have that group dynamic to them, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like Wrong Turn. I already did the whack order I watched those franchises in. And yeah, no, I love this remake a lot. And honestly, as it being my first of them, I was super young when I saw it. I have no fucking idea when I saw it. I just know that it was the first one I saw because for years I didn't even know there was other ones. And much like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, except obviously I wasn't 3 when I saw the Hills Have Eyes remake because it came out when I was 6. And I don't think I watched it when I was 6. I think maybe I did. I might have been 7 or 8, but I definitely was before I was 9. And that movie is fucked up. Yeah, like the two of the Hills Have Eyes movies are revenge movies, and I would say that they are top tier revenge movies because it's not all about rape, which I am not a fan of watching revenge movies. Like I haven't even seen the newest I Spit on Your Grave, even though it has the original actress in it, which is the only part of it that sounds all right. But I'm not gonna watch it. Like I don't like that. But to me, these movies are more like proto, like the original is more of a proto slasher than it is a revenge movie, and so I can get through them because I enjoy these movies for the kills and for like the primal, like what it brings out of the main characters at the end to like fuck these mutants up. Because by the time that the mutants start dying, you really want them to fucking die. And the mutants in this remake are so brutal. Like, oh god, so sleazy. I fucking hate that lizard freak. I fucking hate the fucking brain guy. Like, the dog wouldn't have gotten a chance at that fucker if it was me. Like, I would have, like, if, right after killing Pluto, I would have went and bashed the fucker's brains in with the bat. Or probably the axe. But Doug does go and immediately kill another fucker with a pickaxe. Or I don't know if it's technically a pickaxe because I'm pretty sure pickaxes don't have the normal axe head on one side. I don't know, but it was cool. Yeah, I love the brutality and the gore of this. I mean, this movie had the most kills up until the point it came out, and the next movie only has it up by one. And but yeah, I love it. It just starts off with fucking kills. Like immediately, we just wipe out a bunch of scientists and shit. And the whole nuclear bomb thing that happens, I love that. Like, because it explains the mutants in a way different way than the original did. Whereas in the original, it's like, oh, my wife birthed this crazy big mutant guy that like nearly ripped her apart coming out, and he just was evil and like, yeah, sure. I mean, doesn't explain why he's so strong, but at the same time, none of these movies portray the mutants as like particularly superhuman. I mean, some of the ones in the new movie have powers, but it totally makes sense because they're mutated, and like I'm not in that movie yet, but yeah, I love the remake because all of the actors did a fucking phenomenal job. I like that this movie makes Doug even more of a badass than he was in the original, and how it grounds Bobby more in this movie. Another thing I love though is that one they chop Doug's fingers off. They chop two of his fingers off, and oh, and he has a ring on that finger too. Only it's left because it's a wedding ring. Which how did he not bleed out? Because it's the left hand because there's an artery in that ring or in that finger. Anyway, I love that he gets those fingers cut off because to me that's like a reference to Wrong Turn, which is a loving homage to this type of movie. And if that is a reference to that, that's a fun, neat thing to me. And if it's not a reference to that, it's a really fun coincidence. If you want to be smoking what I'm smoking right now and drinking what I'm drinking, it's some fucking Folgers with Italian sweet cream, some fucking lemon kush, and lemon kush is mixed with Lucky Strike. Anyway, the next movie on the Hills Have Eyes franchise that I actually watched was the sequel to the remake. I mean, I know that says it's the whack order, which starting with the remake and then going to that's movie sequel, the last two movies in the franchise. I think that's whack, but that's not the end of the order being whack. The which kind of gives away the next fucking placements, but whatever. Uh, yeah, The Hills Have Eyes 2, which I found out that the reason that every time I tried to look it up, it would go straight to the remake is because the other movie's called Part 2. So that helped me a lot now that I know that. But yeah, no, this movie's. I just got done watching it and I was expecting to hate it more than I did just because it has by far the most overindulgence in the rape aspects of these movies, which is my least favorite aspects of these movies. Apart from the baby being in danger, but I always know the baby's gonna live, so I still think the rape is worse on that merit. If the baby died, different story maybe, but yeah, these movies are really fucked up. But the point of these movies is that fucked up situations can bring out something very. I don't want to say evil, even though I know that's what they're going for, because I don't think killing someone that killed your family is evil. I think that that's just what you do. And that's why I love these movies, because, like, especially when I was watching the remake, because I had just got done watching Mind Ripper, and, like, Doug in that movie, and Bobby and Brenda in that movie are just so badass. And then you go into this movie, and this movie's like I have mixed feelings on it. Like as a kid, I liked it because it was just another slasher, and it was like a Wrong Turn movie. And I still enjoy Napoleon the character. I still enjoy Amber. Um, that the like I said, the overindulgence on the sexual assaults in this movie, and that being the main plot point. Well, one of like pretty much one of the main plot points is what makes this movie like a good tier and a half lower than it would be otherwise. And I get that that's an aspect of the other movies, but like you didn't need to make it their main thing. It was never the main thing, and that was too much. But moving on from that, the characters are fun. Although the whole idea behind them is really to say, uh, fuck the military complex, which, because like in the first scene, the character that we're supposed to identify with, Napoleon, is talking about, well, the sergeant, who's a really fun Sarge, uh, not quite as mean as I would expect a drill sergeant to be, but like maybe that's to make him more likable, to where he's just mean enough. I don't know, but he says Napoleon has a bumper sticker that says "conversation, not confrontation," which I think rebellions are completely necessary, but a war over oil or like any resource we're stealing from another country with guns, fuck that. And I like that he's like, I just don't like that the president lies. And the sergeant's like, all presidents lie, asshole. No president's told the truth since Truman. And he said the buck stops here. And I'm pretty sure Truman was before. I might sound like a dipshit here, but if Truman was before Kennedy, which I'm not sure he was, I like Ike. That seems. That might have been after. But they're around each other. I know that JFK got shot for telling the truth. Saying he was gonna stop the Fed and stuff. That like literally, if you don't believe me, look up his last speech where that line, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." That line is in the same speech. Anyway, on from that, I just appreciate the aspect of them being anti-war and anti all that. But I also don't understand why Napoleon's like that and also in the war, because the draft doesn't exist in 2007. So that's a plot hole, but whatever. He's there so that you have the character that starts out pacifist and ends up murderer. That's what Doug is in, I believe, both movies. He seems kind of like a pacifist in the first movie, but they really drive that home in the remake. And he's that here, even though he's a soldier. And the whole idea is that they're all bad. They're all bad at being soldiers. They're still in training, and that's why they're able to get picked off one by one, but it's also a good reason for them to be staying in this situation despite what's going on. Because they're soldiers and this is a military base, they have to stay until the job is done. Sergeant's killed, but by that point, they're up in the hills, and then the rope is cut right after that. Overall, decent kills. I mean, like, honestly, the kills for the mutants are better than the kills for the normal human beings, which isn't that much of a problem because I hate the mutants, but in a good way. But, like, well, I wouldn't say I hate the mutants in this movie in a good way, but you know what I mean. Like, you enjoy the performance in the villains sometimes in movies. Like the blind one. And I do love the idea that there's one of them that has evolved to like have rock on them, or like bumps that look like rocks, and they're hiding like that. And I love the whole idea that like the first mission was after they found out how fucked they were, and like a third of their group was dead. They're like, all right, let's get the fuck off this mountain. But then Missy gets kidnapped, and they're like, all right, we cannot leave without her. Now, in the original movie, he's going to save a baby, so, there's literally not an iota of a reason not to save the baby. So that's not really props as much as it is if he didn't do that, he would deserve to die. In this situation, you could say the same thing. But this isn't their child that they're going to save, so I think there's a little bit more admiration in risking their lives to go save her instead of running away like that other asshole did who got his arm chopped off. But yeah, the characters in this movie are pretty fun. I mean, they're not like top tier characters or anything, but I think that they're serviceable. I think the acting is done pretty well. Like, I really do believe the acting in this movie too, even though the script is giving them some pretty heinous stuff to deal with. And I think that more than a couple deaths are people just falling off cliffs, which is true for like the first two movies, I think, but I don't know, that kind of gets old. I do like it when they kill Spitter, like that, because that whole plot point was necessary. It gets rid of all their ropes, and it gives Napoleon his first little sprinkle of a hero moment where he's like, I know how to do this knot tying that none of you can do. I don't know. I think that this movie's a mixed bag. It's not really that fun to rewatch for obvious reasons, but there's also parts of it that are fun to rewatch. Like the idea that this is by far the mutants at their most gruesome, apart from endangering and almost eating a baby. But like, and gutting a dog. Ugh. Which, goddamn, that scene in both movies that happens. Jesus. When I was rewatching the original, I didn't remember how graphic it was. Where with the remake, I had that movie memorized, but I still hadn't seen it in years, so that was fun. But not the point. I do like how both of those movies end with a wide shot of them being watched by another mutant. Granted, my headcanon is that at least the survivors of the first movie still survived, despite implications. Second movie, probably not, but I'd like to think they did, because I really don't want those girls to be in that situation, because they wouldn't have died for at least 9 months. And I don't really remember that much about the first time watching the remake. I'm pretty sure it was at my aunt and uncle's house, because they just had movies that were cool. Also, how I saw Dawn of the Dead remake, which was like one of my first zombie movies. Love that. And as far as I saw one of them, obviously I already told you, was the sequel to the remake, and that was in 2009? I believe that was 2009 or 10, because if it was 10, it was like really early 10. Because I borrowed it from the same neighbor that I borrowed Wrong Turn from for the first time. Or I might have borrowed it from another one of my dad's friends, Adam, because that was who I borrowed the Nightmare on Elm Street box set from, who I got, was the first time I watched the second Nightmare movie. I am cross-referencing this with those videos. Because this was that time in my life. That's when I saw that one. The next time I saw one of them was when Netflix had part 2. So I went from remake, which was technically the 4th movie, the sequel to that, which is technically the 5th movie, but it's called 2, to the 2nd movie. And that was something, because, like, obviously, a bunch of it is recaps of the first movie that I hadn't seen when I watched this movie, which was hilarious, because I basically got to see parts of the original movie before I saw the original movie, which was kind of annoying, but not really. This time, I literally just got done watching all 5 of them in a row, and I remembered the least from this movie, and my god, is it fucking hilarious. I mean, what the fuck? There's a lot of negatives, but there's some positives, and I don't know how much I would not like it if I didn't fast forward through all the flashbacks. I saw the last bit of every flashback, but god, it was a really fast movie without those, which was great. The motorcyclers was fun. I didn't even obviously I didn't realize it at the time, but that guy that was Roy in this movie is also Nick in Friday the 13th 7. And Kane Hodder is also one of the stunt coordinators in this movie, or stunt performers, I don't remember which. I think he's the coordinator. And I think at one point when the two of them are on the set of Friday the 13th 7, one of them said the wrong character's name screaming just because they remembered being on set with him before. I don't know, that's a fun little tidbit if you didn't know that, but yeah, no, it's hard. I'm grasping for things to say about this movie because it's like probably the one I have the least amount to say about. It is the shortest. I mean, I really hate that they retconned Pluto's death. I really hate that they made Bobby get with Ruby because that didn't make any fucking sense at all. And God, I don't know. I don't know how I interpreted that the first time I watched it because I watched this once in 2000, like whenever the fuck this was on Netflix. If you know when this was on Netflix, I believe all the Hellraisers were also on Netflix at that time. If that helps, that's the year I watched this movie. And was it the year? No. Was it the year Ryan Dunn died? Was it 2012? I feel like it was 2011 or 2012. But god damn. Just got done watching. Go see that shit. They have a little tribute to Ryan at the end there. Anywho, they're really funny. I think that the idea that this is, I love that there's a Hills Have Eyes movie in every year from the 70s to the zeros because those are some of my favorite years of horror or decades of horror. And as far as this being the 80s one, it does its job of being the 80s one. It's a fucking Friday the 13th ripoff. That's that's what it is and it's great. I hate that they resurrect Pluto. His death was great in the first film. It was a good comeuppance. It was pretty undisputable. And I hate and I the only reason that I'm completely okay with it is because that's why we get the dog flashback. Because that moment made me laugh for so goddamn long. Like, that might have been the biggest reaction out of me, other than, like, the mutants' deaths in the remake specifically. Which is not to say that this movie, this part two, is one of my favorites, but that was the one of the biggest moments. Was like I already knew that because I watched Cody Leach's review of it, and him doing the reviews of these made me want to watch them all. And then me watching them made me want to do these videos, so it's kind of something there. But yeah, no, fucking. But the kills, man. The kills are pretty hit and miss. I mean, the first kill, guy Harry, who's like the funniest character, but he's also the douchiest character. So it's kind of like he's like the Ned of the movie. A rock doesn't look very real, but the idea of it's awesome. And I love the way that scene plays out with the traps. I love that they're motorcyclists. I think it's really funny that this dude's got this master gas that makes their bikes go extremely fast and would totally blow the van up if they tried it there. But his magic, not magic, but like his shit that he uses to patch shit up is gum. Like, that's funny to me. There's just so many like little funny moments in this movie to make it to where you can get through the whole thing. If you just fast forward through the flashbacks. I mean, unless you didn't just get done watching the original movie, but still. And another reason I think that it was okay for them to bring Pluto back, now that I remembered what I was gonna say earlier, is just because like they need that scene with Pluto and Ruby so they can explain their other dumbass retcon and why there's another another mutant named Reaper here. And they need to have that explained. Who the fuck is this guy? Where did he come from? It's only been 7 years, 8 by the movie's plot point, and so there's no way they have there's what is there a fucking 6-year-old or 7-year-old out there killing people? Come on now. So yeah, I think that in the original, obviously I didn't know this watching this back then, but in the original movie, it's very clear that that's the whole family, unless there's some out in other parts of the hills that are also uh, Jupiter's children. But this movie goes like a step to stupidity and retcons the whole backstory. The whole backstory was that they had one daughter that was normal. They had one son that was fucking nuts, and he fucking killed the daughter and the mother in a fire and fucked a bunch of shit up. And then went and impregnated a prostitute like 4 times or some shit and had the brothers. Now, if he just was one of those brothers, like one of like Pluto's brother, Mars' brother, Mercury's brother, then it would have worked because it would have been another one of Jupiter's children, and the backstory only covers that branch of the family tree. Everything underneath of that you can add to without it being a retcon because they're just living in another part of the hills. When you say that Jupiter has an older brother named Reaper, which doesn't go with the planet scheme, which is already like, what? Come on, name him Uranus. But you see what I mean, though? That's just annoying. And the way they kill Ruby doesn't make any fucking sense why they would do that. Like, I watched the documentary of this making of this movie before I started my marathon just because I hadn't seen it. Like, the documentary. And I gotta say, I'm annoyed at the actress because she was directed to make that more like a death, like to have the gurgle noise. I mean, the rock hit her in the temple. There's a lot of blood, but she just kind of passes out, and she's still moving in the last frame we see her. And that's because the actress was like, "You can't kill me like this. I'm just not gonna act dead," and so she just kind of passed out. But they didn't like change it or anything. That's annoying. But and also it's annoying just because Ruby is like the main character. I mean, I like Cass more, but also Ruby saved the baby in the last movie. But also, why the fuck would Bobby be with Ruby? There's no fucking reason for them to be together. They have no scenes together in the original movie at all. I think maybe the original script she was supposed to be with Doug, but the actor was like, that doesn't make any fucking sense, so they got Bobby. Because at least with Doug, this woman helped save his baby. But with Bobby, they never fucking met. What? Why would he date someone who's part of the clan that killed 3 of his family members and assaulted the other family member that was left and killed one of his fucking dogs? Like, that's insane that they would be together. I mean, I guess he could be looking at it through the viewpoint. Ruby is a victim in all of this and is heroic for betraying them and joining him, but the bonding over that would not, to me, spawn a relationship that lasted that long, especially given how much PTSD Bobby has. Being around her would be terrible for that. Like, no, I just don't see it. There's no fucking way that's happening. There's no fucking way. It's just, there's no way that these people would be taken out to this fucking area of the woods at all. They literally have Ruby with them, who's going by Rachel now. Because I wouldn't want to be called the same thing I was in that that hill hold either. But so yeah, Rachel's like, we shouldn't go in the woods in the hills, and they literally see Bobby like crying and freaking out about not wanting to go in the hills. Why would he not beg them to just not go? Granted, these characters are pretty dumb, like by far the dumbest characters in any of these movies. But goddamn, man, I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot of hilarity in this movie. I don't see myself ever skipping it if I do marathon these again. This was my first marathon of these, by the way. We have 2 movies left on the list. We have your 1 and 3, and a lot of people just forget Mind Ripper. I don't know. That annoys me just because it's so good, but also because it has like the biggest casts as far as like 2 really good actors in it, and like I don't know, if you do marathon these movies frequently, but you don't watch this one, throw it in the middle. That's where it goes, and like it really helps bridge that gap. It's the '90s one, but it's not the one I watched next. I saw the original next. So yes, the original, which was the fourth one I saw. I did a lot more when I just watched it as an adult than the last time I watched it when I was like a teenager. But yeah, no, I think this movie's brilliant. Like it's like everything that's great about the remake is great because it's doing what the original did, but doing it at a heightened level for the new audience and at a budget that is worthy of the icon the movie became. So I cannot give enough praise for this movie, much like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Dawn of the Dead. These are like classic movies where I grew up with the remake from like before I had double digits in my age. So I'm always gonna have that like I love this movie because it created one of my favorite movies aspect to it. But apart from just that, like when I was watching these, I was thinking of like it for the times, and obviously the remake hadn't happened yet. So, and this was the first one I've watched of these since I saw Mind Ripper for the first time, like years ago. The first time I saw the original Hills Have Eyes, I was a teenager, I believe. Like, I think I was around my mid teens, 14 to 16. DVD in like a pack with some other things, I think. Or like and the sequel to the remake in a case that had two of them, and it had one of those plastic things with you can put another case or another disc in. And what I did was I took that out and I replaced it with one that had two disc holders in it. And I don't remember what I fucking took that from, just some comedy set that I didn't care about the other discs in or something. And I put the original in that case instead of whatever it came with. That's how I have those three movies, and I still don't own the other two on DVD yet. Is a classic. It's fantastic. I mean, like Wes Craven, every decade from the '70s to the '90s, he pumped like amazingness into the genre that people still tried to copy today. Got the Hills Have Eyes. I would say to a lesser extent, the first one he did, not I Spit on Your Grave, the other one, Last House on the Left. Uh, yeah, and then of course Nightmare on Elm Street, and then Scream. Great resume, this guy. I need to see more of his movies, but that's not the point. God, yeah, I don't know. I love this movie. I thought one thing I will say is that the acting is not as good as the newer movie, the remake. But they had a lot more money this time to get actors that have been doing this for a while. The original was bad in any way. I just think that it pales in comparison. I feel like it was harder for them to reach that emotion. Probably because trying to reach that emotion is going to be very straining and difficult on anyone. And I'm sure the shooting was already straining and difficult even without that. So I don't blame them. This is a low budget movie from 1977. We can't all be Star Wars. The whole like vibe of this movie is very real, and that I think helps it a lot. Like the mutants are not even really mutants. Like they're just super strong, but they're still easy to kill, and like they don't have like makeup to make them look all fucked up in this movie like they do in the other ones. I think even two has like a bump thing on him. Three's a whole other thing, and then the zeros ones, of course, up the mutant effects. But this original one's really grounded, and I love the Ruby character and the way that she saves the baby and joins their side. And I will say I like her more in the remake just because she self-sacrifices which I think obviously kicks her up a little bit. And also, I love that actress, especially in Victor Crowley. But the original is super good, super good. Everything that happens in this movie is original. So you have to give it credit for that. Whereas, like, with every movie I've talked to up until this point, they're basing it off of this. And while that's kind of true for the next movie, it is its own entity as well. And I'll get into that in a minute. But I don't know. I love this movie. I think that it is great. We would not be where we are today as far as horror movies without this movie. That's for damn sure. Bringing the normal, everyday person to the brink of doing something barbaric for good reason. And showing that all it takes is a little push. You know, I love it. I love it. I need more coffee. Fuck. I may get more coffee because I got cold brew and honey. So that'll make up for the not having more cream to put into it. Not at all sponsored. Just refilled my coffee. And I'm trying to think if I have anything else to say about the original before I get into my thoughts on the Mind Ripper. I love the idea that this is a family in this situation. With most slashers and like even proto slashers, you're not usually with your family. You're either with a group of your actual friends or you're with like coworkers or some dumb shit. And when you make it about family, that takes it to a whole other level of emotions. Especially when you got 3 generations, like, and a baby being one of them. And that is just, oh my god. Ugh. Like, babies in danger, I hate that. There's a sexual assault in this movie. Don't like that either. Fucking, yeah, no. But I love when Beast kills Pluto. I love that. I hate that they retconned it, but he does get killed by Beast again in the sequel, so at least Beast still has that kill because he deserves it. And in the second movie, like, I couldn't remember if Cass and Roy lived, but I just remember thinking, if you kill that dog, because I've only seen that one like 3 times, maybe 4. Or actually, that's either the 4th or 5th time, like last night. Couldn't tell you because I think I did watch the 4 official ones in a sitting once, but I've never seen them all in one sitting until last night. And I think that was the 3rd time I watched part 2, so I think that was the 4th time I watched it. Remake, its sequel, and the original, I couldn't fucking tell you how many times I watched them. If I thought really hard, I might be able to tell you the original, but I'm not even going to try with the other 2. As far as comparing all of them, I'm going to do a different video where I rank the movies. So to go into the next movie I saw, Mind Ripper. Now most people, this is like underground kind of shit, because I'm pretty sure that America does not say that this is The Hills Have Eyes Part 3. In fact, I'm going to do a little research here. Alright, research failed. I couldn't tell you which countries call this The Hills Have Eyes 3, but I know that a lot of them do. And America's probably one of the only ones that doesn't. By Wes Craven's son. It's really good. It's a whole other beast. Yeah, it's about, they find a man who was in the hills and he was trying to commit suicide. He's not a part of the he's not a part of the hill people, but a group of scientists who are like government people who are working on this place. Side tangent. I think that the 2007 Hills Have Eyes 2 takes more from Mind Ripper than it does from the 1984's Hills Have Eyes too. Just that it's a government facility and the radioactivity. That's about it. But what they're doing is that Lance Henriksen is in it, great actor, and Giovanni Ribisi. Please, I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name, because I do love your work. But those two actors are in this, and they are great. And their father son dynamic, it works really well. He's kind of a shit, but I remember being a teenager, and everything he's annoyed at, it makes sense that he's annoyed. And the whole idea that, like, there's a chunk of the movie where you think Hendrickson is dead, and of course he isn't, because he's Lance Hendrickson. He's the top billing. They're not going to kill him that early in the movie. But it makes his son, who had an estranged relationship with him, realize his love for him, and then, like, the whole father-son arc through this movie is enough to make this a great movie. But then you get the bad guy, and they call him Thor. I don't remember what it stands for, but I know that it's humanoid organism, and they're cheating with the R there. But Tho doesn't sound very good. I don't remember what the T stands for. I literally just watched it for the second time, and then watched the two that I saw the most, so. But I do love this movie. The kills, there's the least amount of kills of the whole franchise, but some of the best characters. Well, I would say that the remake, the original, and this movie have the best characters in them. But yeah, the whole plot of this movie is they take that guy that fell to the ground, they call him Thor because they have this virus that they're injecting him with that's gonna, like, at first it's gonna, like, take over his body and, like, infuse this stuff in it, and that's gonna kill him, and then start regenerating all of his everything. Ugh. And asking them to take this virus and fuck with it to make super, like, soldiers. So they end up making, like, they save his life by giving him the injection, and then this fucker Alex he, like, ups the dosage and probably gives him other stuff too, and basically, like, speeds the process up. Meanwhile, like, Henriksen injects this dude to save his life, then finds out that they're doing super soldier serum, and quits. And then he plans a camping trip with his son and daughter and her boyfriend. And like I said, their dynamic makes this movie. But there are some other likable characters. The daughter's likable too. Her boyfriend's fine. He's slasher fodder. But that's his character. But they do make him kind of likable right before he dies. Not the point. Not the point. But the scientist characters, like, there's one that's kind of forgettable, he dies first. There's one that's kind of a dick, he dies second. And there's one that's a complete douchebag, Alex, the one that's fucking this shit up. He then takes the other two scientists that are left over hostage at shotgun point, and then gives them these hypodermic needles on sticks duct taped, full of tranquilizer. And, you know, he makes them hunt this thing that's, like, superhuman, heightened hearing, heightened senses. So I did get the whole, the blind chick had, super hearing when it was convenient for the script. But this is a whole other level of it. And, yeah, no, I don't know, I love it. He has this, like, he has, like, a yonic thing under his tongue that a very phallic thing comes out of, and he uses that to get brain out of people's heads, and even though it's the same thing each time, they do it differently each time. I mean, there's only really two, but, like, really good movie if you haven't seen it. I'm imagining, like, a fourth of you have never seen it, but yeah, no, it's good. Watch the Hills Have Eyes movies in. yeah, let me know what you think. What order did you watch them in? Probably the order they came out in, I would assume. Yeah, I'm gonna do a ranking of the movies after this, and probably a ranking of the kills. So stay tuned for that if you're into that. Catch you later. Like and subscribe and all that bullshit. I'd personalize that shit, otherwise you're gonna get notifications for like Doctor Who reactions as well.